A lot of the time, it's been accepted that it means its context. So surely, if it's okay, if there's 3 or 4 different, you can say one sentence and it can mean 4 things. Okay, so surely, being as in the Quran, surely there can be one translator everyone agrees on that this means this, without going to a teacher to say, I've just read this sentence and I believe it says this, and then he tells me no, it meant this. Then I go to somebody else and they say, actually no, they may have got that wrong, what it actually meant was this. So my point is, a lot of the disagreements and the shouting and the baiting that goes on, it's not so much that there's any disagreement, it's we want a single text. Because if everyone opens someone keeps bringing it open in the Quran and they'll read a verse, and every person will say, no, you took that out of context, and they'll say, give me one then. And he'll say, well, I'm not a scholar. If I say out of context, I could be lying. So I will go away, find out what it means and come back. Do we really need to do that in 2018?
So the reason why we need to really understand this issue properly is this.
Because we're in 2018 and
we are not
still talking about the same thing.
I've heard what you're saying. We are not talking about a book that is written in 2018.
No worries. Sorry.
We are not talking about a book that is written in 2018, right?
Oh, no.
So let me address your point. We are talking about a book that is written in the most eloquent of ways, in a language that is 1400 years ago, even though it may have been preserved by people, right? So if you are proficient in that language, you know what it says. It's quite clear. But if you are not proficient in that language and you're relying on translations, here are the problems that you'll find.
Okay, so
can I make my point, right? You have to have adequate knowledge of the language that this book is written in, the Quran, right? And you need to have adequate language in the way that you're going to express yourself in the translation, whether it's English or otherwise. So you have to have proficiency in both of these languages. Not everyone understands the language that they're translating from with all the necessary understanding that they need. For example, there are many things that the Quran has only one word on its entire whole book. Now, what is the meaning of this word? If you find this meaning is not present elsewhere in the Quran, then you can't use the Quran to define the meaning of the book. If you have the same word repeated in the Quran, then you can actually understand the meaning of the word in the usages elsewhere within the book. Do you follow so far?
Okay. That's like in any language.
Sure. So when we talk about the Quran, do you know why it is very difficult to translate? Because it comes with such a conciseness and eloquence of the language has so much meaning within it that people can easily, if they miss the understanding that is being intended, and then give you a total different meaning.
Even in this day and age.
Please. To explain this a bit further. The Quran in one place says about the Prophet, very early language of the Quran. Okay? وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ, and purify your clothes. That's the word thiyab is used. If you ask a modern day Arab, what does it mean? He will say, and let him purify his clothes. God is asking about the Prophet. But this word thiyab has other languages during that time in the classical Arabic. It doesn't only mean clothes. Okay? So if it also refers to the internal state, your heart, your qalb, for example, and the Quran is, Allah is saying, and purify your heart. Okay? Then you would say, okay, it may also mean this. So we are talking about words that have been chosen by Allah in such a way to express in this magnificent form of meaning, which may mean several things equally. Which of the meaning? So when the translator chooses to translate, they will choose to translate from what the person understands from the immediate text, from the context. So if you, as an Englishman, want to read the Quran and try to understand this, what you should do is this simple. Instead of relying on one particular translation, consult several English translations. There are more than 40 available, I think, online in English.
Yeah.
But of course, some of the translations will be sectarian, biased, having a biased view of how they're translating it.
Yeah.
But if you get translations which focuses on the language, on the rhetoric, on the meaning, and gives you the understanding how Muslims generally believe, rather than say a Jewish professor translating it or a secular liberal translating it, they will translate with their particular, some understanding of things, right? So you cannot then say, I'm at a confusion, I don't know how to understand this Quran, because you can get the meaning. When the Quran says, there is no God except Him, La ilaha illahu, no one can come and translate, that means, He can also be God too. There is no room, there is no ambiguity. So the context of things that we are Muslim referring to, where things are revealed, for example, to give an example, God and His Messenger is free from the obligations, this covenant they had. Now travel freely. I'm just going to quote the whole thing, but important aspects of these few verses. Now travel freely for 4 months. On the 4 months is over, go and kill the infidels wherever you find them. Lay them with each ambush and so on and so forth. But if they resist, then escort them to the place of safety if they surrender and so on. Right. This is in chapter 9. Now, the way it's addressed, if you read even translations, it says God and His Messenger is free from obligation. Bara'atun min Allah Rasul. God is free from obligation that you had with the mushrik. You had with the mushrik. You, who's you? And who are the mushrik? Is it speaking about us? Did I have a covenant, a treaty, a pact with the idolaters, with the infidels? No, I don't. So it's talking about a historical event. So we need to know the historical event associated with this description. So that's where the context comes along from history. That context could be given information in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. It could be written in the books of the biography of the Prophet, or books of maghazi, what we call the books of wars that have been penned by historians.
We're going off the subject though.
No, we're talking about how context is established.
Yeah.
Context is
But
established.
it's not just that. Okay, we agree on the context.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I've seen other people debating, we go back to the original statement.
Yeah.
I'm going to go next.
Why is it even now we still get the same replies?
Give me a difference they're debating in the Quran. Just to highlight an example.
I'd have to get YouTube out of that.
No, it's important to highlight an example of how Muslims are still debating today. And then we can talk about the reason why. The fundamental teaching that Allah has given in the Quran, everyone agrees, whether you are a Sunni or a Shia or a Sufi.
So why do we still see people say, I'd have to go to a scholar to tell me what that means, even now?
Give an example.
Because if it's been translated so many times and you've got 4 books of the translation, surely at some point someone would get together and go, right, we need to standardise all these, because there's fractions, there's arguments.
There is no standardization necessary. Do you know why it was not necessary?
But then you're never going to get the true. Meaning unless you, because someone's got.
I'll clarify the same example I've given.
Yeah.
The example about fighting the idolaters who had a treaty with the Muslims then.
Yeah.
When they broke the treaty, these pagan idolaters, Allah and Prophet was instructed to say, now because the treaty is over, you are now back in a state of war.
I think
give them 4 months to travel.
Yeah.
When the 4 months are over, then you can actually go and fight them. Not before that. So people, if they didn't go and learn about the historical event, because the Quran doesn't give you that history in that particular few verses, few ayat, It doesn't tell you, oh, it's referring to the Pact of Hudaybiyah, it's referring to the pagans that were... Do you follow? So a ordinary person without the background knowledge, reading that translation only without the footnotes, without the explanations, they would need to resort to who? An explanation provided to give you the background. That explanation is...
the teacher even now to explain?
Let's explain. Watch this here, if you don't mind, brother Mansur. If you have a surgeon, right, and he hasn't got his, what is it called, PhD or whatever you call it, but he's trained to be a surgeon, would you let him operate on you? He hasn't got his PhD.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing.
I'll explain why it is. I'll explain why.
Okay,
I'll explain why. Now, the fact of the matter is, as Brother Mansur said, anyone can read the text, and the text says, okay, go from here and stand here, and you'll get this. Now, the guy goes there, he stands there, and he gets nothing. He doesn't understand why. You know why? Because he doesn't know the historical background of it. Now, he goes to a scholar, and the scholar explains. You're not supposed to stand here. You're actually supposed to stand there. You understand? The fact of the matter is, just by reading it, you might not know everything behind that situation. Just like a surgeon, just because you've trained to be a surgeon, but you haven't got your PhD, you're not ready.
But the PhD is written of accepted testing. It's been accepted that the fact this one's true. So the person that's teaching you is going off one explanation of it. So he wouldn't then. So you go to that teacher, that's fine. So this surgeon will get to the point where he no longer needs to go there. So this is the point I'm saying. So when he gets to the point where he's got his PhD and he's treated or whatever, he will not then need to go to that teacher because he will be the teacher.
Correct.
So the point is now, my point is this. So there's a time frame on where you get to the point where this is standardised, this is what you do.
Where you're educated. Where you're educated.
So my question is, I think I'm not saying it properly. The question is, even after all the scriptures have been confirmed, that you've got different mosques and you've got different interpretations.
What are they differing?
And different sentences mean one or the other. That's fine. I appreciate that. But so it is because the other week the guy says I'm not educated enough to explain what that meant.
I'll just say this and he'll go back to you. But
so I don't know what that means. So what I'm saying is now, even today, we're still not understanding what that sentence.
I'll clarify.
So you have to go to a teacher.
I'll just clarify that part. I understood what you said, but the issue there is, I think the answer hasn't been understood either. What Brother Mansur is saying, that the actual standardization of Islam happened when Prophet Muhammad came. What that means is the basics of the religion are in a straightforward format. What you're talking about is our own people today, for example, Muslims, might not be educated in their religion. That's the issue. Not the teachers. The teachers are educated, and they might have an opinion. They know which opinions they can differ on, and which ones are set in. Which ones are set in stone. Now, the fact of the matter is, the major differences are nothing that are going to be like, can you kill this guy or can you not kill this guy, for example?
So then,
and I'll let you go back to Brother Mansur.
So what you just said then, so why is the four? You just said there may be four differences in the transcript.
No. So I think this is where the confusion came.
This is about,
As Muslims, we're supposed to learn. The very first revelation that came to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, do you know what it was? Iqra. Read, proclaim, recite. From the very moment the Prophet received his first revelation, Prophet received revelation from God. This is an encouragement and a command to go and learn. And our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that every Muslim, be they male and female, it's obligatory upon them to acquire knowledge. Of course, knowledge of the religion primarily, it is obligatory. So as you can see, the importance provided in our Islamic religion, way of life. So if Muslims haven't learned and you ask them a question, what does the Quran say about this? They will, if they are sincere and if they are humble, they will say, I don't know. I have to go and ask someone who knows to explain that to you. Maybe this is what we've encountered.
So we're not. So somebody that's seeing it from the outside. Okay. So I can't read Arabic, so I would need translation. Then I'm told there can't be the translation for certain words that aren't in our language, which is fine. But then there would be a standardised word that everyone accepts to fill into that gap. So it makes no difference of the context, because everyone would agree when you're rewriting this book or the translation of it, it would mean this. So everyone agrees it would mean this, like me and you and thee. Then it would be, if I read that, and then it would say that you've read that out of context. I gotta say, you've read it. You've not read the full verse to understand what the whole meant. So then,
just want to
if you're
add
writing
one point to that,
you would have documented it in a certain way that there would be no. It could mean this, could mean that. It would just mean this. And that's what I mean about standardising the language.
My friend,
standardising the things. Do you understand what I mean?
The particular example I gave, it said Muslims had a treaty. Now, the treaty is not named, right? You cannot expect every single translation to have this explanation within the text. Some translators translate exactly as the text is, and they leave it to that. Other translators may put a footnote and say, this refers to this particular treaty. Other translators may give you a whole explanation about what treaty it was, who were the involved parties, and what was the condition of the treaty and the point of the treaty. Explanation given. What time period it was, whether this was broken or not. The text remains the same when it's translated. If you wanted to know the fuller, in-depth meaning of the historical context associated with it, you have to go and find a translation which gives you more information, right? Right. So there is no question about standardization, because standardization means what? That you have one standard translation and everyone follows. You will say, look, with this explanation, now the translation is this big. I want a concise translation which is this big.
No.
To give you an example,
that's what I mean.
Recently there is a translation that came up called the Study Quran. Study Quran. It's quite massive, and it gives you a lot of explanation in the footnotes. There are other translations which gives you footnote explanations.
Right.
Others which don't. So if you ask me, okay, what do you recommend? For you, if I recommend you, for example, Professor Abdul Halim's translation, for example, the Riyabadi translation, and you will see that they are translating it with an audience of English-speaking people in mind. They're translating from what in mind? The linguistic nuances that are there within this text. So they're translating from the background that will help, for example, a Jew or a Christian to understand this text. So
does it help me as a non-Muslim to listen to someone explain a certain verse or a certain sentence, as in what we just talked about, which is completely false, but I don't know that.
Which one? Sorry.
It's a conversation. It's on YouTube. Where,
what is it?
Modine was doing a.
Who is Modine?
Modine, I think the Shia guy is talking about, the brother.
So he said he was giving dawah to this person. I don't know who he was. They weren't on camera. So he was explaining all the verses and he was.
I suppose he's a scholar here, or
I'm going to say this is me. I'm going to admit, but this is the point.
Okay.
Should you be letting then people that are freely speaking give completely the wrong idea?
Okay.
So what happened then was, I think it was Shamsi, I just spoke to him afterwards and basically said, everything you just said was wrong. You shouldn't be saying that. Why have you said that? And he explained. He goes, no, that's totally wrong. So he literally went back on everything that the other guy said. So my point is, where's he got his information from? And would that be the same information that I would have read, which could be wrong? So that's what I'm saying.
Let me speak to you frankly.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, blatantly.
Yeah, go for it.
When Muslims come here to speak on behalf of Islam, to let other people know about Islam, what we believe and what our text says, you would expect the person to do this would have an adequate knowledge, sufficient knowledge to do this, right? If you don't have this sufficient knowledge, should you be coming? The answer is no. Should you be speaking? The answer is no. So if you didn't know anything about, for example, imagine now I want to explain to you about surgery, and I have zero knowledge about how human, physiology, where your heart is. Imagine I think your heart is here or here, or is it at the back? Kidneys, kidneys maybe just behind your heart, or is it just below, or is it here? Imagine I had no knowledge of it, and I'm discussing with you how to do a good surgery for a kidney operation. You would say I'm making a mess about things. I'm just.
Only if I did know better.
Right. So it is crucial for Muslims who are going to come here to have the basic knowledge that they're going to speak about. It is not sufficient to say, I only know one ayah and I speak, then speak about that ayah only. Why do you go everything else? Oh, you talk about history, you talk about theology, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah shaykh. You talk about economics, you talk about crime and punishment, when you don't know anything about it. We should need to know about limitation. You might be passionate about it.
Yeah.
That's one thing, knowledge. Second thing, are you doing it the appropriate way? Or are you using the most vulgar of language? I mean, I see people coming here now becoming YouTube celebrities, like some people, right? And the way they talk and every time F words and this word and that word. What are they talking about? They come here for, I don't know, personal reasons. This is not why, Muslims should have a discussion with a non-Muslim on Islam. If you want to, your personal reason you want to discuss, why talk religion? If you want to talk religion, if you want to talk about Islam, it's common sense. Understand and learn about what you're talking about. I am not going to talk about, say, something about deep in history which you have no knowledge about.
Do you agree that this happens in the past?
No.
A lot.
This